Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Q&A session. We are going to be talking today about the new PPWR regulations and just learn a bit more about EPR. We know that obviously with the changes, if you are, an Amazon seller, for example, you may kind of be aware that in 2 days' time, there's a few deadlines kind of coming in. So we just thought we'd make a little Q&A session, see if there's any questions and kind of go from there. Just on that note as well, so my name is Liam. I am the Partnerships and Senior Business Development Manager here at Simply VAT. And I'm joined today with my colleague Angela, who will be kind of going through and supporting us with a lot of the answers to these questions. Before we kick off, just a few house rules really. So as mentioned, this is going to be a Q&A session. We've got a few questions already from a few different clients and just ones that we have internally that we're going to be going through. But if you have any additional questions, please feel free to pop them in the comment section and we'll be able to answer them as we go along. Just a note on those questions as well. Please do try and keep them as general as possible. If there's any specific questions that you may have in relation to kind of your business or, if there's a specific request that you need us to look at for you, please do just get in touch with us separately and we'll share the contact details at the end of today's session as well. So on that note, Angela, obviously, thank you for kind of joining me and going through and answering the questions. I'm not sure whether you just want to give a bit of background about kind of yourself and then we can go into some questions.
Yes, definitely. So today we're here just to discuss PPWR regulation, EPR regulations. These things get a bit confused between each other. That's my experience talking to sellers. And basically the PPWR is the packaging and packaging waste regulation. This is something that has been around since 2025. And it basically covers all the rules regarding packaging throughout the whole of the life cycle. It includes design, composition, recyclability, for example, reuse, waste prevention. So all of those things that are trying to go in an eco-friendly way. And then there is the EPR, which is basically when the regulation has been strengthened, and that's instead the extended producer responsibility. The main change with that is basically that the responsibility of that life cycle of the product has been given to the producer, meaning the seller. This is obviously something that we can expand, but for the purpose of this session, we got sellers on. So this basically is something we want to highlight, the responsibility now on you guys. So we can expand on that with the questions, and that is my introduction to the lovely EPR and PPWR regulation.
Perfect. Well, with that said, let's kind of jump straight in. So I guess the first question that we have, and I think is probably going to be one of the main questions that is on everyone's mind at the moment, is for Amazon sellers using that pay on behalf, do they need to take any additional action to comply with PPWR? I mean, I know there might be a few changes with the pay on behalf scheme, but yeah.
So I want to say the answer will be yes, potentially, because it's not always the same. The rules change by jurisdiction. But talking about Amazon Pay on behalf, this basically means that Amazon may continue to manage certain parts of this compliance, namely the eco-contribution and the reporting. However, this does not necessarily replace the seller's own producer registration. Still, they need, in fact, they've been asked, we are aware of that, to obtain their own registration alongside an authorized representative when required. So the main advice there is just to monitor the situation and be, just keep an eye out to communications and how the framework is developing in this or that jurisdiction.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's quite key. And also, I guess a follow-up question really to that one, because we all know Amazon at the moment, same with the VAT side, they're doing a lot of checks. Obviously, they're making people aware that they may have exceeded things. Are we going to be, do you think, seeing that with EPR? Like, are they going to be going backwards with that? Or do you think it's just they're looking at from here onwards, just because I know the deadline is 2 days away with quite a few of these things. So a lot of sellers may be panicking about what they need to do with that.
Yes, I understand. Your question is a great one. I have definitely I've definitely been talking to numerous sellers, very worried about that. The main thing that we need to understand is that there is a regulation world and there is an Amazon world, and these two things sometimes they are not working together. So this is important because being compliant with the actual regulation doesn't necessarily mean that you are compliant also with the marketplace's rules.
Mhm.
So this is important again, just to monitor the situation and have evidence of, for example, I haven't exceed this or that threshold. Why do I need to register? Again, if the marketplace has a necessity to just have this registration, sometimes sellers will need to comply. And again, this goes to specific situations, so I will leave it as it is.
Perfect. And actually, on that note, I've just seen we've had a couple of questions come in actually from the audience. So, I guess the first one, which is going to be quite relevant to what we've just been talking about, actually, is someone's asked, what are the consequences of not being EPR compliant by the August 12th deadline? So, are we foreseeing any consequences? Is there anything they need to really know? Any Amazon things coming in? And obviously when it comes to another thing is, how long does it take to register for all countries? Because it might take a month or so, right?
So the second one is actually something very hard to answer in a generic way
Okay.
because every jurisdiction, every EU country has their own time frame. I can name a couple, for example, the fastest is Sweden, up to 4 weeks, you get your number. Poland, 16 weeks. So you can see that per jurisdiction, everything changes in terms of time frames and how the actual specific government faces those processes, basically. To go back to your previous question instead, so what are going to be the consequences? Fast approaching deadline, 2 days away. What am I going to do? The 12th of August is basically a end line deadline where we have been having an 18 months period to adapt to the strengthening of the rules. So governments as well as Amazon they are expecting that all sellers will be having their own registration numbers because of many reasons, time frames, volumes, you name one. Um, Most sellers won't have them.
Hmm.
Um, this, from a point of view, from an Amazon standpoint, obviously can cause delisting until you don't get compliant and you don't provide on your Amazon Seller Central your EPR number for the specific countries. Um, so this can be obviously a bit challenging for sellers. I believe that the best approach is just have close communication with Amazon and understand if they can grab probably a proof whilst they are registering
Hmm.
submission for the documentation to the authority that may serve as a proof, and probably there will be some leniency from Amazon. This is again where I'm leaving things at because again,
Yeah.
generically speaking,
Yeah.
um, but yeah.
Perfect. And I guess another question as well that's come in. So this one is slightly specific, but I guess it can be tailored to quite a few different businesses that could be watching or are selling within the EU as well. So Rashine's asked that they're based in essentially Northern Ireland and they sell into Ireland, but there's no obviously customs barrier. There's that trade agreement between Northern Ireland and the EU in general. So how does that kind of get reported? I guess they'll still have to clear the border. So it'd be the same as any other EU kind of country complying with EPR, right? There's no special kind of scheme in place for Northern Irish based businesses, and EPR would still be required.
And this is for a Northern Ireland based business to sell into Ireland.
Into the island, and also I guess generally kind of around the EU, just because there's that trade agreement in place with all EU member states.
Yeah, definitely. These people need to get the registration in each EU country. Definitely.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So I guess the one question that we'll go to next, so there's a couple more questions that have come in, and I think the first the next two really are quite similar, so we'll go through them together. So the first one is, can you clarify kind of what the thresholds mean? And is there a minimum in place without having to comply, or is it literally, from there onwards? So I think they kind of go hand in hand, really. And yeah, to, I guess, clarify that a bit more, when we say
Sure.
thresholds, we are on about kind of thresholds before registration is triggered. And yeah, I'll kind of let you take it away from there, Angela.
Definitely. Thanks, Liam. So, again, guys, we do need to understand that thresholds are country by country. Some countries, most of them actually, are first sale and the 3PR, as simple as that. Some others are actually enforcing some thresholds below which you don't need to register. I will name some. For example, Netherlands is 50 tons of packaging introduced to the Dutch market in 1 year. If you are below that threshold, you do not have obligation to register for EPR. Now, some people want to register anyways. We can do that in a voluntary basis. We need to understand, though, that in this case, authorities won't provide an EPR number, they will provide a membership number and compliance with filings and probably pay some eco contribution, although you are below threshold, will be still needed. So again, there is no mandatory requirement for certain countries where the thresholds apply. However, we can definitely decide to go ahead and register voluntarily, but
Mm-hmm.
authorities usually don't give out an EPR number below threshold, but again, a membership number, which is
Yeah.
slightly different. Another thing that I wanted to mention is in regards to thresholds that we are going to see all jurisdictions having the thresholds slowly disappear with time. European Union, going back to the main PPWR regulation, are trying to let's say, combine all the frameworks among countries and make it a bit less confusing and more straightforward for people
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to navigate a bit better. It takes time. It's not something they can do in a day or two. So yes, in the future, not too far, we're going to see those being lifted, those thresholds. But for
Mm-hmm.
now, if that can help just facing your compliance, that's actually a precious information. May you be below threshold for certain countries. I'll name a few more so you guys can have more information. You are not obliged to go and get your registration packaging. We're talking, and that's, as I mentioned, the Netherlands with 50 tons. Ireland is another one, and this is two threshold to be met in tandem. So you need to hit both. It's 10 tons of packaging in a year in the Irish market, as well as 1 million turnover in the same year. So if you do not meet both in the same year in Ireland, you don't need your packaging registration. And then the last one, a very small threshold that I'm aware of, is Belgium with only 300 kilos. Sellers that do well in Belgium, they meet it very fast. But for some other sellers, it's just a new market, or probably they have got some sales, but not that many. So yeah, just to keep an eye out to your volumes, to your sales. That is key.
Perfect, thank you. And I think on that as well, I guess another key question that does keep coming up, because I know we focused a lot on Amazon and marketplaces, and outside of these, do we see kind of where anyone else will face consequences for not being registered in time? Is there how, I guess, structured and I guess looked at will be own website sales, IELTS sales, for example, goods going into the EU. How are those going to be monitored from there?
So definitely we're talking about sellers. So this means that they will have, I assume, in place, obviously the monitoring methods.
Hmm.
It's important that they do monitor the volumes, so that they do monitor and talk to their suppliers, probably the packaging suppliers, just to understand that everything is in place and what needs to be changed. Can get changed just to meet compliance requirements.
Hmm.
That's very crucial and important. And then for Amazon sellers, you have got your precious Amazon Seller Central. The reporting bit in that space is crucial, it's pivotal. So always take a look at that and, just abstract your data and just keep an eye on them. And then
Hmm.
whatever is external, so your website, or if you do sell in other marketplaces, same method really. Just keep an eye on your volumes, your sales, just so you can make sure that you know what requirements you're satisfying or what you need to
Hmm.
adjust while you go.
Perfect. Thank you. And we've had a few questions as well. So I can see some here with Molly with your pre-orders. That's actually something that's quite interesting. And I think it's something we'd prefer to kind of maybe look at offline because it seems quite specific. So we can definitely get in touch afterwards and kind of go through that one. With Emma as well. Yeah, I think maybe it's best for us to just have a quick conversation. All of our calls are non-committal, so we can just have a quick catch up, kind of, any time really, and just go through and really look at the specifics for each of your businesses, with especially with these questions. With Madeline, we do have a lot of information on our website regarding thresholds and stuff that will be shared afterwards. Outside of that, Amazon, I believe, are also publishing some information on thresholds. They have your own website. Obviously, we do have a lot of information as well as, I don't know, Angela, is there any, I guess, specific resources that you're pointing clients to at the moment outside of kind of our own website? Is there anywhere that kind of shows where thresholds may be that people can kind of look
Definitely getting a compliance agent is always the best, just because it's
at?
very hard to navigate those kind of subjects. If you guys want to have more information, you can simply probably Google the specific country and just see who is the PRO, the producer responsible organization, and you can see what that specific jurisdiction requires. If
Mhm.
you wish for us to do our job and you keep on doing yours by selling, this is why we're here. We're always happy to help. Again, no commitment whatsoever in every conversation, even just to understand what you need. That's always best. But yeah, the PROs are there. You can just Google it, country PRO, and then you will be linked to the specific website.
Perfect. Yeah, and also there was another question as well, just regarding our services. So we do actually offer more than 10 countries. We just only offer 10, I believe, actually 12 or 13 now member states within the EU. And for full transparency, it's nothing other than just general demand. So in a lot of other countries, there's not a huge demand in the market at the moment. But as we are kind of, seeing more businesses expand into other markets and other regions, we are always planning to scale out our services. I mean, recently we've just started offering Australia and Switzerland, which has been something we've been key to do for a very long time. So
This
we're
is on the
definitely
VAT side, Liam, right?
yeah, so with us here at Simply VAT, yeah, we're able to kind of offer more and more, and as we kind of scale up as well, and we're definitely going to have more and more countries offering soon, I guess, as we expand our business and grow into new areas and obviously as new markets come out.
That's correct. Do we want to list the countries where SimplyVat can help in EPR right now? Could it be
Yeah, so
useful?
it's with that question, I believe specifically it was regarding kind of the VAT, but if it is
I see
EPR
you.
in general, we are also offering in more countries. I believe it's about 13. We
14
can
precisely. Yeah, you got it.
perfect. If you've got the list, then yeah, please feel free to kind of just detail them out. I think that'd be quite useful.
Definitely. So we can serve a number of jurisdiction, more to be added while the strengthening of the regulation develops. And for now, they are Germany, Austria, Spain, Poland, Netherlands, France, Belgium, Sweden, Italy, Ireland, Finland, Portugal, Czech Republic, and United Kingdom. which is a bit hybrid after Brexit. But yeah, it's subject to EPR regulation with their own exceptions. But yeah, those are the countries we can help you in.
Perfect. Yeah, and Portugal is definitely one as well that we do get a lot of like queries about. So
I
we'll
agree.
definitely be able to support everyone now
When it was
moving.
added, I was very, very much happy. I was chuffed, honestly. I was like, yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I was just kind of like, great, that's another area now that people can obviously, get our support within. We're
definitely.
just going to go through one more question, and then I think we'll go back and have a look at some questions that we've already pre-collected from some of our clients as well.
Hmm.
So the one here is we mentioned about the 10-ton threshold in Ireland.
Yeah.
Now, they're saying, doesn't PPWR remove that exemption, meaning producers below 10 tons still have EPR obligations? Or is that still in place with PPWR?
In the sense that you don't need the registration if you are below the 10 tons, basically. That's the question. Just remember, no, it has not been lifted yet. This is
Mhm,
in plan for the regulation, but at the moment, if you are below the both of the thresholds that are applying in Ireland, so 10-ton packaging in a year as well as 1 million euros turnover, same year in the Irish market, you don't need registration and it's not mandatory. Again, Ireland is just now adjusting their framework. So there has been a lot of confusion and they're trying to dissipate all of that by adjusting the framework. But at the moment, the latest version, the latest information we have is that the thresholds are still in place. They will be
mhm.
lifted with time, definitely yes. But whoever is below both 10 tons of packaging and 1 million turnover in a year, they do not need registration.
Perfect. Thank you. And yeah, I think as mentioned, we'll just go back to kind of looking at, which I guess your answer just really ties me into the next question, which is going to be what is, I guess we've kind of covered this, but I guess it'd be good to cover all and maybe get a list. But what's the most important thing that businesses should really be doing now in preparation for this PPWR slash is there a list of things that people need to do apart from obviously get in touch with us?
Liam, wait, I do apologize. I
That's
can't
okay.
hear you anymore because a call went through below. I don't know why I'm not in do not disturb. Anyways, sorry, would you
No
mind
problem.
repeating the question? I
Of
couldn't hear
course.
you.
Yeah, no, of course, that's no problem. So, as I was just saying there, yeah, it's just kind of what is the most important thing really that businesses should now be doing to prepare for the PPWR? Is there, a list of things that they can do? Where would the first place to look be really to kind of prepare themselves?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's actually a very good question. So we have touched base with checking the data and kind of trying to collect all demonstration of they are actually selling in each country. Um, the evidence may include, I don't know, technical documentation, probably declaration of conformity, packaging specifications,
Hmm.
material weight of the actual specific packaging, something that obviously gives an idea, documented idea of what your packaging looks like, feels like, and is made of. That's the
Hmm.
main important thing. Because what we need to understand that PPWR regulation wants to drive e-commerce, specifically in this situation, to a more eco-friendly and less waste in general. So we're going greener. We're trying to be more eco-friendly. So if you can take measures now, preparing and changing the packaging just with something that is recyclable. That's very nice. Reusable, for example, that will give you many benefits, such as paying less eco contribution, for example. That will be
Hmm.
something you will see as an immediate benefit from the following year that you've done your declaration. So that's a good tip. And obviously, we will be prepared for the near future when many other regulation will come into place. And probably it's not going to be anymore, yeah, you can start preparing. It's going to be, you need to be able to demonstrate that your packaging is fully recyclable, for example.
Yeah.
So yes, I think these are good tips to take a note of.
Perfect, thank you. And to be fair, that was a very good answer. And I have got a few follow-up questions on the back of that.
Go
So
for it.
the first one really that I had has actually now slipped my head. So the other one that I had was just how does PPWR kind of define the excessive empty space in that packaging and kind of what are the consequences of that non-compliance? Because, you know, we focus a lot on the packaging side, and I'm sure as we have all seen, we've all had a box delivered that's got, it's a book, and then the package that comes is like that big, and you're like, why do I need this? So, how is that kind of defined and actioned, I guess, moving forward?
Right. So yes, I got many sellers asking about the empty space. So we definitely need to understand that we need to maximize our packaging. So that's
Mhm.
very important. We need to maintain, though, safety. So the product, while it travels, it needs to be absolutely preserved and it needs to arrive in a correct manner so that the final consumer can use it. So keeping that in mind, if you can avoid to have this empty space as much as possible, reduce it. That will be actually something that is appreciated now. You can start preparing, and this will be actually mandatory in a while. And then, sorry, what was the other part of the question?
Yeah, what are the consequences, I guess, of that non-compliance? Like, if there wasn't anything, because let's just say, for example, some clients may not have oversight of how they're packaging. Like if they're using FBA, for example, as we
Yeah.
know, Amazon repackages that up and kind of sends it some of the time. So what I guess would be the consequences of that? And are people going to have more control now over, say, Amazon's repackaging sizing and stuff?
On that last one, I am not sure because obviously
Okay.
it depends on Amazon. And on this one, I expect to have more developments as we
Mhm.
go. For what regards consequences, definitely, while it is not mandatory to adjust and arrange the packaging in a certain way, it will be obviously a payment a bit higher in eco contribution, just not because you don't have packaging that is eco friendly as much as it could be. If we're going further, that like I don't register, of course, there are more serious consequences. We're talking about fines. We're talking about probably some advisory or warning that the local authority may send before the fines, just in order to give some time to the sellers to be able to comply.
Mhm.
So again, this is a very generic answer. That's all I can give at the moment. But you definitely need to look after your compliance in EPR because the consequences may be serious delisting, fines, warnings. Yeah, definitely be careful, guys.
And I think a great question actually that's just come in from someone who's viewing now, Phil, has just mentioned kind of like how is that empty space, I guess, going to be regulated? Or I guess we don't really know yet, do we? Because it's not something that is mandatory, as you've just mentioned at the moment. It's something that's coming in and they're starting to introduce it.
That is correct. Yeah. So at the moment, it's very difficult to, for some area of this regulation to be definitive with an answer. So
Mhm.
again, I would just reinstate that this is under development, and at the moment, you guys need to work with what you have. So that's that.
And let's have a quick look. So I think we've got a few, we'll go through a couple more of the questions that we've kind of pre-collected from a few of our clients. And then what
Yeah.
we'll do is we'll have about 5 or 10 minutes just to go through some more fewer questions that have come in. So if anyone is
Lovely.
viewing and they do have a question, please do just ask it now because once we do start those questions, unless that's kind of a follow-up question, I won't be able to get around to all of them today. And if we don't get around to you, we will follow up through email afterwards because we know it is quite a new topic. And I'm sure there is quite a lot of questions as it is being introduced. So I guess just going back to the packaging,
Mhm.
and is there any latest guidance on reusable packaging, what it needs to do? Is there anything that people need to be watching out for? I know we've briefly touched on it, but yeah, I guess just another tip or trick list with this.
Yes, definitely talking about recycled contents or usage basically of this type of packaging. We do need to look after a bit more the packaging ideas and how we want to introduce our products in the market. The more eco-friendly, the better, as we have delved in so far. Um, there will be some strengthening further of the regulation, and the aim of the PPWR is basically to apply by 2030 something there is going to be fully recycled contents on the packaging basically. So yes, business needs to make sure that the packaging in scope is like on point. um, so yes, for example, I'm talking about plastic, for example, in packaging. It's best if we can use recycled plastic other than just pure plastic.
Mm.
So yes, that's basically where we are going.
Perfect. And with that as well, is there anything the businesses should be really discussing with their packaging suppliers right now?
Yes, they should think good and well and long if the packaging is actually something that they could better in
Mhm.
some areas. So as we have said before, we do need definitely to understand if our supplier can make our packaging smaller, just to avoid those empty spaces. Put in something to just shorten them, compostable paper, for example,
Mhm.
or sometimes there are like those foam that they put in there just if the product needs some further protection. So yes, redesign the packaging with the supplier in a manner, in a way that will be supporting for the strengthening of this regulation in the future.
Perfect. And I know we focus a lot on packaging, so I've actually got kind of, I guess, a few questions just outside of that, really. So, as we know, EPR is not all about packaging, and the PPWR, there are other areas. So, would you be able, Kate, to just give us a summary, I guess, about kind of what other categories there are, what they need to be looking out for? I'm interested to hear about France because I've heard there's quite a few different categories there.
That is
And
so correct.
perfect. Yeah, if you're able to just, I guess, start giving us a summary, kind of what categories, and then we go from there.
Definitely, no problem. So yes, so we've been focusing on the packaging part of the regulation. However, there are a few more categories that apply pretty much to all the jurisdiction, and these
Mhm.
are the triple E, which is basically anything considered electronic. So everything with a chip, a sensor, anything that is run by batteries that gets recharged, anything electronic. That is one category. And then there is another one, again, common to all jurisdiction, which is the batteries. Any kind of battery that comes to your mind, the AAA, the lithium one, any kind of battery. That is another category on its own. It's fair to say that if you do sell an electronic product, okay, for example, this headset has a built-in battery, right? So this headset will fall into the triple E category as well as batteries, right? Some other things such as, I don't know, I'm going random here, a TV remote control. If you do sell that without the batteries included, that will be just triple E category. However, if you do sell in the near past, I just saw and chosen to buy something because the batteries were included. It's convenient,
Mhm.
it's nice,
Mhm.
but this caused another cost, another responsibility, another compliance matter. So good choices related to your business and to the growth of that business. So to go back to the example, TV remote, if you do not include batteries, it falls down just to the triple E category. If it includes batteries, you do need to register for both categories, batteries and triple E. And these are common, as we said, as categories to all the jurisdictions. Now, touch base with France. I like that question because I was gobsmacked when I saw the categories in France. They
Mhm.
are numerous, to say the least. I'll mention some. They've got textiles. Little I know, serving a client, consulting them. I understand that leather, pure leather, it's not within the textiles, and it's one of the few exceptions. Everything else that you can think of textiles, it needs to be registered. So that one is one. Then they've got furnitures.
Hmm.
So that's another one that's very peculiar. No other jurisdictions so far they have it. They've got sports and leisure equipment. So careful with whoever guys among you sell, I don't know, sport glasses, like for cycling, for example. In France, you may have more obligation than you think. So have a chat, have a conversation with us just to clarify what are your needs, your requirements. Just to mention a few more, DIY and gardening supplies, toys, uh, chemicals. I don't know if I said it already, but yes, you can say, there are many categories more than just the three that apply to the all of the other jurisdictions.
Yeah, and I think as well though, I don't know whether it helps or kind of like makes the process a bit more confusing because as you just mentioned, the categories in France are so broad that you wouldn't have thought that leather would have been an exemption, to that rule. You would have just thought it's a textile, so therefore it definitely classifies. So it's definitely interesting and I guess really worth just double checking with an expert or just having a conversation to discuss your categories. And whilst you were saying that answer, I actually thought of my question that I had earlier, and
Hmm.
it's one that we haven't actually touched on, and I think it's going to be something that people are thinking of. And that is, how are these kind of eco contributions? Obviously, we've spoken about eco contributions. How are those calculated? Is it by weight? Is it by the amount of batteries? Is it by the amount of orders? Or is it a mixture of all the above? Like, how do people know what they should really be expecting if they wanted to a forecast for their obligations for the next year, let's say?
Right. So generally speaking, this is done by country. So
Hmm.
every country has their own meter of understanding what are the volumes. Um, you can definitely have a estimate.
Hmm.
But I prefer to just say to clients that it changes by country. So sometimes we can find the information and relate them to the client. Some other times we don't, simply because, again, it depends on the country and how they are doing their framework, and not always there are. Information available, especially now that is kind of it's not on in its infancy, but developments, strong developments are happening as we speak.
Hmm.
So this is a difficult one. We can have an estimate, yes, but we need to be very cautious on providing clients with this kind of answer, because we actually are not sure. We don't know. We can give generic information of what the PRO are sharing with us. I believe and I expect more information in this will be available soon. But for now, just talk to the experts, definitely have a conversation, ask, and if we are able to grab those information from the PRO, the local PRO, we'll be more than happy to give it to you, and you can make your estimate. For other, though, if we say, sorry, I don't have it, it's because we genuinely don't have it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And I think as well, I guess it's just making sure with the contributions, that you just, for the first year, as it's really coming into play, maybe more rules and more patterns will be kind of, I guess, found. Because when did EPR kind of first come into play? Because obviously the PPWR is now coming in, but when was EPR introduced?
It was, I want to say, early this year. But remember that PPWR came into place in 2025, and
Mhm.
then they have given sort of an 18 months. So we basically fall down to the 12th of August 2026, where the EPR has been fully on, and you need to be compliant at least with the main jurisdiction, not the main, but what basically has been actioned in the strengthening of the regulation. So it's fairly recent with the little changes on the producer responsibility placed now on the seller or the
Mhm.
person, the entity that does introduce that product with its packaging or batteries or electronics or whatever it is to the final consumer into the specific country. So yeah, I hope I answered your question. I got
Yeah, you did perfect. So what we'll do now, that was really excellent. Thank you so much, Angela. We'll just go through a few of the audience questions that have come in whilst we've been going through those little bits and pieces. And then we'll kind of, just look at where else we can support. So I guess the first one that we'll go through, which I guess is a really interesting one, I think looking at, I guess, is there any exemptions that are specific to EPR processes that are in place for micro enterprises? Like, for example, if we look at the VAT side, we know there's no kind of thresholds for a lot of businesses, but to some EU businesses, they may have a threshold before the one-stop shop is required. So is that the same for EPR, or do we know kind of what that looks like?
We do know that at the moment there are not any exemptions for small producers. We may see something like this coming into the game later on, but at the moment, for the mainly, if there are not threshold in that specific jurisdiction, doesn't matter how big or small you are as a business, you do need to comply and register.
And is there any differences? I mean, I'm going to assume the answer is no, just based on kind of what you said. But if I'm, say, a sole trader, do I still need to comply, or is it only if I'm a registered entity?
No, you need to comply with EPR, although you are a sole trader. Yes,
Okay.
and I actually had some objection from this type of clients where they have said exactly what you said. There is not a benefit. In terms of growth in the long term, for this kind of entities, small entities, sole traders, to have this kind of responsibility as a compliance cost, and I appreciate where they're coming from. And I hope that this will be looked into because I think it's penalizing a bit on that. So, yeah, I agree, but this is the information.
Yeah, of course. And hopefully, obviously, as we say, as these things progress, we've seen what happens with the EU VAT regulations that changed in 2021. There was a lot of changes, obviously, following that. So as we do progress and look at things, maybe there might be some changes or thresholds introduced in later years, kind of
Correct.
as we've mentioned. So on that note as well, actually going back to previous point, actually, and Molly has asked a follow-up question just regarding, I guess, the packaging.
Mhm.
So would you expect that bubble bags and like hive wrap would be classed as environmentally friendly, or is there an product or packaging type that people are leaning more towards? Is there something that we recommend? I know we briefly touched on
Mm.
it, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Of course, we need to understand what materials are used for this bubble wrap, for example. Obviously,
Mhm.
a pure plastic bubble wrap is definitely worse than a bubble wrap made with recycled plastic. So that's the main general rule. We expect to have some listing of what is actually recommended. So that is something that I expect to see. But for now, the general information is just to try and do your design, your packaging in the most eco-friendly manner you can, because this will give you a huge benefit in the long run and even in the short run with eco contribution being lower. Sorry, I don't have a list of supplies that are accepted, but yeah, the general idea is this one.
Yeah, and hopefully, as we've mentioned a few times, as from the 12th of August, it's only kind of really coming into place and starting to be, mandated. Whereas from that date onwards, I'm sure as more and more kind of, things happen, thresholds kind of maybe get introduced, we might see patterns regarding kind of packaging. So that could be
Sure.
kind of something that, we might be able to share a bit more once
in the near
we start
future.
seeing a bit
Yes.
more patterns and, starting what steps people are taking to kind of tackle this, especially, you may have recommendations from your 3PL providers or your suppliers, maybe they might even recommend certain type of packaging. So it's one of these things where I think we're all really going to learn together with kind of EPR and just kind of see what happens from there. And another question, actually, just on that note, is the 12th of August for all EU countries, or is it just for some countries? We've had a question here from, I believe, Helen, just looking at, mentioning kind of when was it that a UK company needed this to go into Germany? Is it from the 12th of August? Should it have been in place? Those kind of things, really.
Right, right. I understand. So deregulation, and I'm talking about the strengthening of PPWR, translated in EPR,
Hmm.
applies generally from the 12th of August 2026, as we know. However, many individual, let's say, obligation may have a later date, and they depend on the implementing of those from each jurisdiction. So generally speaking, all EU jurisdiction may be inside the compliance by the 12th of August. But again, everything is developing as we speak, and that can depend on the implementing or the delegated acts that are vigent in a specific jurisdiction.
Perfect. Neat. And I guess a follow up to that, and this is going to be our last question that we do go through today, just because we are kind of leaning towards the end of today's session. But we've had a question just asking us to really expand on the requirement for the representatives. If I
Mm-hmm.
clearly I need to go and get a coffee after this session, but if we can just expand on that in the countries that do require it. So, like, what is it? Why is it needed? Is there any reason why people can't register themselves? Why do people need this authorized representation?
Right. So authorized representation is needed wherever you are not incorporated,
Mhm.
especially for overseas businesses that wants to get regular and compliance with EPR over here in Europe. So that is a must. We need to have a representative to represent ourselves. And this is basically simply because governments, they do need somebody to call in case there are, unpaid EPR, eco contribution, stuff like that. And then another thing that I want to touch base on is wherever you are a domestic seller, meaning, for example, I am Italian. And if
Mhm.
I do hold a business in Italy, I am Italian, I am in Italy, so I do represent myself. I don't need it. I actually don't. There are other countries in Europe that do not have the need of an authorized representative in case you are within the EU. And this, I don't want to make a mistake, so I won't give an example because I don't have it under my radar. But yes, if sometimes it's not needed, just in case if you are a EU incorporated, but you're not a domestic seller. So yes, that's basically the authorized representation in a nutshell. We do offer the service, Liam, as you
Mhm.
know, where is required. We do provide this one in all the jurisdiction where it's needed. So yeah, that's very fun.
Perfect. And just before we go to tie off today's session, I've recently started to love doing this on our webinars. It's just really asking for any top tip or a recommendation that you've given to the people you've spoken to, something that you've noticed yourself, anything really, just a one liner or a little short paragraph or something.
Right, that's again very good question. I definitely would like to advise businesses, sellers, to just have a look at their data. I know I am, yeah, reiterating that I have said it, but it's very important to have documentation in this in not in certain times, but confusing times where basically you don't know if I need to register, if Amazon asks it, or if it's actually under the regulation. So this is actually something I would advise, just to keep your data close and have it available, and make
Mhm.
sure that you do actually get your homework done, and you understand where you need to register, where you do not, and you just don't go because you know you're not sure. So that helps the scaling of your business, just planning and facing compliance. You know that it's a cost, but the cost will get you revenue. So you need to plan it in a
Mhm.
timely manner, and that will help scaling the business faster, safely, and in a compliant manner as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, again, thank you so much, Angela, for just, helping and supporting on today's webinar and,
Thank you, Leah.
coming through, answering some questions. It's been really insightful and hopefully, it has been useful to everyone who has asked a question today.
Yes.
Just on that note as well, obviously apologies that we couldn't get around to every single question. For those that we haven't got around to, it may just be because it was quite specific or something that we need to kind of look at separately. So we will follow up after today's session just through email, and I believe we'll just pop our email in the chat. I believe my colleague may have already done so for us. So that was, yeah, they have. Perfect. So just feel free to kind of email us at Here to Help. And then obviously any other questions, we'll just get in touch with you directly. We have already got some additional resources available as well. So there is an EPR quiz on our website that can help with any kind of understanding of your initial obligations. It can, I guess, really help determine if you need to talk to us about EPR as well. So definitely recommend doing that. And about a couple of weeks ago, we actually did a webinar. So it'll be available here on our YouTube channel, just kind of looking at EPR. I hosted that with my colleague Jenny. And Jenny is also our content manager who's wrote quite a few lovely blogs for us regarding kind of EPR. So definitely recommend a read of some of those. And again, links will likely be shared after today's session, and it's all available on our website as well. So again, thank you so much to everyone who's attended,
Thank
and
you, guys.
hopefully we'll be able to support you all a bit more closer and see how we can guide with EPR. And as more updates come, we will let you all know about it. But again, thank you everyone. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you at the next session.
Thank you, and see you at the next one, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.